In this video, I'm going to show you how to download fonts from the internet and install them on your Windows 10 computer. I have two websites open here, fonts.com, which has a lot of really cool and unique fonts, and DaFont, which has a lot of really great fonts, and many of those fonts are free. So I'm going to show you how to download from either site, and these same principles can be applied to almost any site out there on the internet that allows you to download fonts. So I'll start with fonts.com. In order to download from fonts.com, you're going to need an account. I'm already signed in with my account, but if you're not signed in, you'll need to click sign in here, and if you don't yet have an account, you can choose to create a new one. All you need is an email address and a password for your new account. There's no obligation or cost to having an account with the fonts.com website. So I'm going to look for a font here first, and I think I'm going to look for one called Blackjack. There's a neat font out here. It's free, which is great for demonstration purposes. And if you're testing it out, this might be a fun one for you to grab too. So here's a font called Blackjack, and this is what it looks like. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This works great because you get to see all of the characters of the alphabet. Now, if I'm interested in this font or any of the other fonts, I can click on Quick View. And it'll bring up basically the same thing, but it also shows what the price is. And in this case, I'm going to add to cart. And I'm going to download this for my desktop computer. Blackjack was added to my cart, so I can choose Checkout. Now it's $0.00, so there's nothing I'm really paying for here. But I want to guide you through this process anyway in case you did choose to buy a font from the website. Now, this is who makes the font, Typedelic, and this is the font name, and this is what you'll be getting. You can also add it to a wish list if you want to compile some of these to purchase at another time. Now there's two formats. Either one is going to work fine with Windows, so you can really make your choice here. This doesn't really make much of a difference to you. But I typically lean towards the WinTrueType fonts. You can also tell the fonts.com website how many computers you plan to use this font on. That might change your pricing. If you plan to use this for a lot of different computers, you may have to pay a little bit more for some of the fonts that do cost money. If you can find a promotional code out there, that's great. If I can find any promotional codes, I'll toss them down in the comments below. And we can proceed to billing. It's $0.00, so you don't even need to worry about putting in credit card information. Here's your billing information. You'll need to fill this in as it's appropriate. And select that you've read and accept the license documents and the terms of business. You should read over these if you haven't yet read them over before. And you click Submit Order. And when you do this, your order is placed, and you can say download all the desktop fonts. This is a great way to do this, and you won't need to install their Skyfont software, but you could if you wanted to. I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch without any additional software. This is the way that you download fonts from any other website as well. So I'm going to say download all desktop fonts. Now I'm using Firefox as my web browser, so this is what the save screen looks like. Internet Explorer might look a little different, Microsoft Edge might look a little different, Chrome would look a little different. So it all depends on the web browser you happen to be using. But ultimately, what I always recommend for downloading fonts is that you choose to save the file before you open it. It's going to download as a compressed, zipped folder. So I'm going to say Save File. Now in my case for my web browser, that's going to save the file on my desktop. You may also have that saved into the Downloads folder as well. So if you go into Windows Explorer and you go to the Downloads folder, you'd find it there. But in my case, here is my compressed file on my desktop. I'm going to show you what to do with that in just a second after we go and get this other font from DaFont. So here's DaFont, and this is a slightly different website, and honestly it's a little bit easier to find and download your fonts because you don't need to create an account for many of their fonts. They have a ton of things that are just free fonts available. A lot of different people submit their fonts here, and many of them do charge for these fonts, but many of them are also free for personal use. Here's one called Simple Joys. I'm going to download the Simple Joys font to demonstrate how this one works. Click Download. It's going to save also a compressed zipped folder file named Simple Joys, and I say OK. It downloads that to my computer. So now I can minimize my Firefox browser, and I have my two compressed folders here. Now, all I need to do to extract these is I can right-click and choose Extract All. When this happens, a window is going to pop up here, and it says files will be extracted to this folder, and it'll show those extracted files when complete. In my case, it's going to drop it right onto my desktop in a folder with the exact same name as this file. And I can say Extract. And here it is. I'm going to get back to this in a minute, so I'll close it for now. And here's my folder. I'm also going to right-click on Simple Joys zip. Now, one thing you might also want to do, using Windows 10, this works great. Using prior versions of Windows, there's going to be some different ways to scan your files for viruses. But something I'd like to show you anyway with this one is you can also choose to right-click and say Scan with Windows Defender. And what it'll do is it'll bring up a window here that's going to say Windows Defender scan completed on 3 items. Now I only right clicked on one, but remember this is a package, kind of like a box or an envelope that's containing a lot of other stuff inside of it. So there's actually 3 items within this package, and we're going to see that in a little bit. But it showed that there are no threats detected in that little scan. It's really quick to do, and anytime you're downloading something that is free on the internet, it's always a good idea to scan it first. If you're using a different antivirus program, the method will probably be very similar. For example, Malwarebytes Anti-Malware will also put an option when you right-click on a file to scan it with that software as well. If you don't use anything else, Windows 10 does come with Windows Defender. If you are using something else, the option will probably be in the right-click menu. It's always best to check on these files just to make sure everything's okay. Fonts go into this special area in Windows that is kind of extra trusted. So we want to make sure that they are very clean before installing these files. And you'll see in a second how trusted these are. So I can close this now. And I can extract my Simple Joys font. Here's Simple Joys. And here's the folder that accompanied that. So these are the files. I don't really need these anymore. And these are the folders containing my actual fonts. So I'll start with my first one in the fonts.com download. And when I go into that folder, there's a ton of stuff in here. They package this up with a ton of different files. Here's my purchased fonts. It's a Typedelic font, which Typedelic just happened to be the account that uploaded it. And there's several documents here, including licensing and trademark information. And there's a fonts folder as well. In the fonts folder is my Blackjack font. It's a Windows TrueType font because that's what I chose to select. There's also an open font format as well. And then here's my actual font file. It's really not that big of a file. You do have to hunt a little bit to find it, but it's not too bad. And here's my file. This is the one that I'm really after. Now, yours may say Blackjack. It may say blackjack.ttf. TTF just shows that it is a TrueType font file. And you can see that here as well. If you like to see the extensions on the end of these files, you can do that if you click View and just make sure that the file name extensions is checked. If you uncheck it, it just says Blackjack. If you check it, it'll say blackjack.ttf. Personal preference. It doesn't really make a difference depending on how you want to see your files. And this would affect any files, Word documents, Excel documents, etc. Anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, we can right-click, click on it, left click on it first, and then right click on it, and you can choose Install. Notice the shield here. This means you're going to do something that requires some elevated privileges, because you're not just installing it for one user, you're installing it for every user on the computer. And anytime you do anything like that, especially in Windows 10, it's going to require the elevated privilege. That means you need to be an administrator on your computer. Odds are you probably are, but it's just going to kind of jump into that administrator level for a moment and then go back to a normal level. That probably doesn't mean much to many of you, but it is just kind of what's happening behind the scenes, and that's why the shield is there. Anyway, you click Install, and a window is going to pop up. Mine pops up on my other monitor, and it pops up briefly, and it says Installing Files 1 of 1. And what that's doing is that's placing it into the Windows Fonts directory. And that's really all there is to installing that font. It's now going to be available in any program that you want to use. I'm going to close this one out, and I'm going to go into the Simple Joys font as well. Now this one is much simpler. There's nothing else in this than just this one TTF file. So you can right click on this one and also install this one if you want. It's just a simple TTF file. Right click Install, Installing Files 1 of 1, and then that box disappears and that file is also installed. Now if you want to save these for a later time, if you're switching computers or you want to install it on another computer, you can simply take these TTF files and copy them to a flash drive, and then on any Windows computer you'd be able to right click and choose Install. Now one thing I did there is if I right click and you don't see Install, it means we didn't left click first. So make sure you left click first so that it's selected, and then right click and choose Install. Now let's test out our new fonts. I'm going to open WordPad, because every Windows 10 computer would have WordPad, as a place to demonstrate our fonts. Now I installed 2 new fonts today. So the first one was Blackjack. And if I just type, it's just in this default font. But I want to switch to my other font, so in my list should be the Blackjack font. And I'll enlarge that a little bit so I can see it and check it out, see how it looks. It's a pretty cool font. The other one was called Simple Joys. Now if I type that out, it's still in Blackjack, but I can highlight it and I can go and find my Simple Joys font. There it is. Now sometimes when you look in your list, your drop-down list here, it's a little hard to see your fonts, because what Windows is doing is it's trying to show you the name of the font in that font, which becomes a little tough to work with sometimes. So it takes a second to do that. Another thing you could do is if you know you're looking for the Simple Joys font, just type it in and it'll find it. And there's my Simple Joys font. So there you have it. That's how you install and use fonts in Windows 10. If you have any questions or comments, check out the comments in my YouTube video here, and I'll get back to you and help you out.